Keep this short and sweet. I don't really know what to say about the captain because anything I say would come up short. The world is full of people that are in it for themselves, and finally in my journey I met somebody who was not in it for themselves, who was in it to protect creatures of the sea that could not otherwise protect themselves. And just the energy of knowing and meeting that person changed my life and put me in a position where I could somehow, in a very small way, be of service to him and his mission. Hardest working person I know, also one of the humblest people I know, Captain Watson.
And James, thank you very much for opening up your home. In 1975, Robert Hunter and I were in a small little rubber boat in front of a Soviet harpoon vessel that was bearing down on us. This was just off the coast of California here. It was before the 200-mile limit. And we were reading a lot of Gandhi at the time, and so we thought that what we had to do was place ourselves between the harpoon and the whales, and they wouldn't kill the whales. And it worked for about 20 minutes. Every time the harpooner tried to get a shot, I would maneuver the boat and block the harpoon. And then the captain came down the catwalk and he screamed into the ear of the harpooner, and he looked at us, smiled, and brought his finger across his throat like that, and that's when I realized Gandhi wasn't going to work for us that day. And there was a few moments later, there's this incredible explosion, and the harpoon flew over our head and slammed into the backside of a sperm whale, a female sperm whale, and a pod of 8 magnificent sperm whales that were fleeing for their life in front of us. And it hit with a thud, and she screamed, and it was a very human-like scream, and she rolled on her side in a fountain of blood, and suddenly the largest whale in that pod struck the water with his tail and dove. And he swam right underneath of us and hurled himself, threw himself straight at the harpooner on board that vessel to protect his pod. But they were ready for him, and the harpooner pulled the trigger at point-blank range and sent another harpoon right into his head, right there. And this whale screamed and fell back in the water in mortal agony, just thrashing about on the surface. And I wasn't very far away from him, and I caught his eye, and he looked straight at me. And then he dove, and now I saw a trail of bloody bubbles coming straight at us real fast. And this whale came up and out of the water at an angle so that his next move was to fall forward and crush both Bob and myself. And as I looked up into this eye as it rose above me, an eye the size of my fist, what I saw in that eye changed my life forever. Because I saw understanding. I saw that the whale understood what we were trying to do. And the easiest thing for him to have done was to come forward and crush us, but I could see the effort that he made as he pulled back and his muscles tensed, and he fell back, and I saw his eye disappear beneath the surface, and he died. He could have killed us, and he chose not to do so. So I feel personally indebted to that whale for the fact that I'm still alive, and everything I've ever done since has been because of that debt that I owe that whale. But I saw something else in that eye too, and it was pity. Not for himself or his kind, but for us, that we could commit such an incredible act of blasphemy, that we could take life so, maliciously, without any thought, really. And then I said, why were the Russians killing sperm whales? You can't eat sperm whale meat. But what they were doing was using spermaceti oil as a high heat-resistant oil for machinery. And one of the pieces of machinery that they make out of this is intercontinental ballistic missiles. I said, here we are, destroying this incredibly intelligent, socially complex, amazing creature for the purpose of making a weapon for the mass destruction of human beings. And that's when it occurred to me, we have to be insane. And from that moment on, I said, we serve the whales, we serve the sharks, we serve the creatures of the sea. We don't care what people think. A few years after, in 1986, we sank half the Icelandic whaling fleet in Reykjavik Harbor. And it might sound like that's an illegal thing to do, but I did turn myself into the Icelandic authorities, and they refused to charge me because what they were doing was illegal. They knew to put me on trial would be to put themselves on trial. But I had a former colleague of mine come up and said, I just want to let you know that what you did in Iceland was despicable, reprehensible, and unforgivable. And I said, so. What we've managed to do in the last couple of years is really, I think, quite remarkable with our crew of volunteers. We've managed to cut the Japanese illegal whaling quota in half for the last 3 years. Our objective is very simple. We're trying to sink the Japanese whaling fleet economically. And we haven't made a profit for the last 3 years. They can't continue doing Yesterday, I met with some of the Sea Shepherd staff with the U.S. delegation to the International Whaling Commission. And they were going on about how, well, there's only so much we can do, and Japan's getting away with this, and, you know, it's a very complicated thing, and they're going to target 50 humpbacks next year, and there's nothing we can do about it. And I said, well, yes, there is something we can do about it. Right. And if they try to kill those humpbacks, we'll rip the harpoons off their decks, is what we'll do about it. The U.S. Whaling Commissioner looked at me and said, well, I guess you can always do that. But I think that, you know, every year we go down there, the Japanese whalers become more and more aggressive because they're becoming more and more desperate. And it's a very dangerous situation because they are trying to kill us. And their government will justify and defend everything they do. We're fighting a very one-sided thing here because we can't hurt them. We have to take every precaution to ensure that we don't cause any injury. And if ever an accident were to happen, we would be, of course, condemned by our government. So it's very, very one-sided. But we're doing the best we can with the resources we have. And in December, we'll be going back for our 6th expedition. And in the last 5, we haven't had a single person injured. We haven't injured anybody, haven't sustained an injury. We haven't broken any laws. But we have saved in that period of time about 1,500 whales.